ahead and get started, and we have a chance to let folks come on to the call. So my name is Bobbi Chavarria. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the chapter chair of San Gorgonio chapter of Sierra Club, which covers both San Bernardino and Riverside counties. So I'm guest hosting tonight, and so we'll have our regular Trail Talk leaders introduce our speaker tonight, but welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in. And for a quick acknowledgement, we do want to recognize that we are on unceded territory of the Marayam, which is also known as the Serrano tribe, which is part of the Tongva, Gabrielino, all of that, those tribes and nations that have been here in this valley. And we do this because a native land acknowledgement really is an important part of understanding, acknowledging, and honoring Indigenous people and their history, as well as their continued presence on the land on which our businesses, homes, and schools are now found. And so if you want to know, if you're out in beyond the San Gorgonio chapter area, or in specific regions, you can go to native-land.ca and put in your zip code or your city, and you can find out where, what historical and perhaps current tribes are in your area. And so during Trail Talk, we do want to have you stay muted during the presentation. Most folks should be coming in already muted, so we're good there. But you can use the chat, and we would love that to, keep the chat going, ask questions, and somebody will be monitoring those questions as they come through. And let's do a little practice now. You could introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, if you belong to, if you're in our chapter role, or if you have a specific group. And if you already know your Indigenous land, you can throw that in the chat as well. So let's have folks do that as they're coming in. And then the final question could be, what are you hoping to learn, or what are you expecting from this Trail Talk? So, and we did have a switch up on the program, so you might be wondering, maybe you want to learn why there was a switch. But yeah, folks, go ahead and do that in the chat, and we'll keep going. Do you want to talk about Sierra Club as the nation's largest and oldest environmental organization? And our mission is to protect, enjoy, and explore our land. And our priorities are, and many of you might know, is to transform our energy system, to ensure outdoors for all, and this is where the Trail Talks come in, act for justice for clean air, water, affordable clean energy, and to protect our ecosystem, including a 30 by 30 challenge, both at the national level and the state level. So those are our priorities, and we love to share this information with folks so that they understand, as Sierra Club members, this is what we're working towards. The San Gorgonio chapter, like I said earlier, covers the San Bernardino and Riverside counties. We were established on October 10th of 1932, so we're approaching our 91st anniversary as a chapter, and again, part of a national organization that is the oldest and largest environmental organization. So you can see, if you are where you live, you might belong to one of our regional groups if you're a member. So now that takes us to our Trail Talk, and our monthly Trail Talk webinar was presented and really got its start right during the height of the COVID pandemic, because outings and group outings were not being promoted or actually being organized at all with Sierra Club. And so a few of our Trail Talk, our our Trail Talk leaders, who are our outings leaders, John St. Clair, Julianne Anderson, and Carla Kellums, came up with this idea so that we could share just vital information and kind of serendipitously, learn about trails and being outdoors, even when we couldn't. So that is our Trail Talk history. And so we thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm going to pass it over to Carla to introduce our guest presenter.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear, but no one else is here yet besides the 5 of us.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be posting the recording on the Sierra Club, what do you call it? YouTube channel. So
okay, we can go.
Let's go with the program.
Yeah. Right. So this will be available on YouTube after it's presented. So I'll just go ahead and introduce Joshua. Joshua is a student at UCLA studying chemical engineering. Joshua is one of our youth. I know for me being, some of the older people here, we enjoy seeing and hearing about what our youth is up to, especially when it comes to forest stewardship, land stewardship, any kind of environmental endeavors, because they are the next stewards of our land. And so it's important to hear what they are up to. And even though Joshua was scheduled to give a presentation about his family trip on the Arizona Trail, we thought it would be a breath of fresh air to hear all about Joshua and his endeavors with land stewardship and the environmental things that he's involved with. So I do want to let you know that Joshua is San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust summer intern. He's our trails coordinator. So not only is he going to talk about land stewardship, but he's also going to talk about some trails design, some of the design aspect of some of the trails he's been working on, and also some of the features that he's been involved with in doing that. And of course, I know not all of it will be glamorous, but it's good to know that we do have some youth individuals who are willing to get out, get their hands dirty, and disconnect from technology for a little while to do something good for our environment. Joshua is also interested, as far as his environmental interests are, in sustainable energy, carbon sequestration, and greenhouse gas reduction. And in his free time, he likes to go hiking, backpacking, and he really enjoys photography. So we'll get to see some of the pictures that he's taken on his journey to learning about land stewardship and trails. So Joshua, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you very much, Carla. So first of all, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. Don't mind me. All right, great. So as Carla said, I'm gonna be talking about my internship with the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust. Just to begin, if anyone has questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I guess, unfortunately, I can't really answer questions if you're seeing this after the fact, but I'll do my best to answer questions now. And yeah, so to start off, I just want to give a little bit more background on who I am, why I'm interested in environmental work. So let's do that. So first of all, I've lived on the San Bernardino Mountains since I was almost 3 years old. So pretty much my whole life. I'm 20 now. And I have 2 younger siblings, which, let's see, just to make sure, can you guys see my cursor?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is me in all 3 of these pictures. And then this is my brother Josiah and my little sister Josephine, who are a lot older than are seen in this picture right now. But I've spent a lot of time hiking up here. I've had a good amount of, I guess, freedom because I've also been homeschooled on the mountain. And so that's allowed me to
Yes.
go hiking a lot, biking, backpacking, definitely influenced me to enjoy nature a lot. So yeah, I also go to UCLA. I'm studying chemical engineering right now. And unfortunately, my classes aren't very hands-on. So I think if I were to go in depth about what I'm learning in there, I would probably bore you guys, unless you want to take a nap. But yeah, this is some of the stuff that I've worked on at UCLA, just math and physics. But I kind of want to talk about why I decided to major in it, because I think that's more important and you know more environmentally focused. Because how can majoring in chemical engineering and working with the land trust relate, is maybe a question that you're having. And so first of all, why did I want to do chemical engineering? I'll say the one thing that I don't want to do leaving UCLA, because I am a senior, so that's something I'll be thinking about soon, is I will not be doing petroleum engineering, because I want to do something that can help the environment, which in fact chemical engineers actually do a lot of. So one thing that's kind of pictured right here is wastewater management. That's very important, just for humans in general and the environment. Other things are carbon sequestration, battery storage, and actually, a fun thing about batteries and why I think they're so important is a solar grid the size of Nevada could actually power the entire globe, but you'd have nowhere to store that power. So you'd only be able to power the globe during the day, which, is a problem. So, creating efficient, reliable batteries that last a long time is very important. And an equally important thing is battery recycling. What do we do with these batteries once they're no longer usable? So that's another thing that I would love to go into. And yeah, those are some of my interests. So now I'm going to actually talk about my internship. So I worked with the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust as their trail coordinator intern. And before I kind of go into what I did as a trail coordinator intern, I'm just going to kind of explain what is a land trust, because some people might not know. And in general, what a land trust is they'll either buy privately owned land, or create what are called easements with farmers, basically agreements, not just farmers, but private landowners, that basically says, you have these rules, and ultimately the goal is to protect and preserve the nature inside of that land. So forest land and unique and endangered species. So for the San Bernardino Mountain Land Trust, what we do is we buy and preserve land with threatened and endangered species and habitats in the San Bernardino Mountains. And we also do that to create trails, which you'll see very soon. And yeah, so some of the requirements or some of the things that I did with my role as the trail coordinator intern, first of all, was managing social media. So half of my time was spent in person and half of my time has been spent remote. And so social media is one of the things I've done remote, mainly because I'm young and I can do it. I don't mind. Also working on our Arrowhead Ridge property, which is, I believe, our largest property at the moment, is 170 acres, and it has 5 miles of trail running through it. And also another one of our properties is the Moonridge Pebble Plains property. So we're working on a thinning project on there. And finally, I've done some tabling. So sharing what we do, environmental events, usually in Big Bear. Yeah, and so I'll just talk about that. And first of all, tabling. So this is Dustin Seckham on the left. He's our land steward, and he's really great. I spent a lot of time working with him this summer. And one thing that we did together was we did tabling. And, basically we're out there promoting who we are, what we're about, why we're important. But we also present a lot of facts about our mountain that personally I had no idea about, even though I've lived up here my whole life, for example. All right. So back to it. Okay. So basically one of the coolest things I got to do during my internship was definitely this trail talk with Tim Kranz. Essentially, we went to this habitat, this ecosystem that's actually found nowhere else on Earth. So that's pictured on the right. And this is called the Pebble Plains ecosystem. It has unique endangered plants and butterflies. So these little belly plants, like the one that you can see right here. This is actually called Kennedy's buckwheat, and it only exists on this tiny ecosystem in Big Bear. And basically, the reason why there's all these endangered plants and butterflies is because what happened during the Ice Age is all of these rocks and pebbles got lifted up through the soil and are basically resting on top of the land here. So as a result, large plants like trees can't grow there. If they did, then these plants would no longer exist. And that's what makes them really special. Another fun fact about the San Bernardino Mountains, it's one of the most plant species dense areas in the United States. We currently have 92 sensitive or endangered plant species, as well as 48 sensitive, endangered / sensitive animal species. So actually one of our preserves surrounds this Pebble Plains area. So the actual Pebble Plains is Forest Service owned, and then ours wraps around it. And I've done some work on there, which I'll be talking about. And in the center, this is another endangered plant. It's called the birdfoot checkerbloom. And it only exists in this preserve that you can see. This is our Metcalf Meadow Preserve. It's a very small preserve. And the only other place it exists is the Baldwin Lake Preserve, which is also nearby. And it's just at those two preserves, which, I think makes it very special. Another picture that I don't have right now, or another animal whose picture I don't have right now, is the Southern River boa, which has prime habitat on our Arrowhead Ridge Preserve, which I mentioned earlier. And also endangered. So I think that makes our work all the more important. But yeah, so now I'm going to be talking about some things I actually did. So first off, we built a lot of trail signs, and where all these trail signs are on our Willabella Trail, which is on the Arrowhead Ridge property. So tons and tons of trail signs. We basically set up trail signs every week. It's a constant process. But the reason that we do this, or one of the reasons, is kind of a philosophy that Kevin has. And Kevin is here. It's also pictured here, 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 and here. So basically all my, if it wasn't for Kevin's hard work, we probably would not be out there doing all of this. And same for Carla. It's right here. Her back end planning has made all this stuff possible, as well as being with us, helping. And Kevin's philosophy is trails for dummies. So you want to build your trails so that someone who's never hiked on a trail can hike on it. And honestly, that's pretty tough because if you've never been on a trail, you'll tend to get lost at every junction, for someone who's lived up here all their life, or gone on lots of trails with lots of trail signs, it is pretty straightforward, but not for everyone. And we want to make our trails accessible to everyone. And that's very important to us. So how do you build a trail sign? And one of these photos, if you notice, it says in construction. So we were building a trail sign at this spot. Basically, you need a post hole digger, which is what Kevin's holding. And then Dustin, who's also here, is holding a rock bar. So basically you alternate between the two, you pound a hole into the ground, you take your post, you insert it 2 feet in the ground, you level it, attach your sign, throw in some concrete, and you're done. So lots and lots of these built. And I think an important thing to note about this as well is, you're not just building a trail sign everywhere, because that would take so much work and effort, and it would kind of be a waste of time. So, you do have to think independently, right? You have to think critically, where are people getting lost? Where would be the best place to put these signs and indicators as to where they need to go? That way we don't have to build a million signs. So, lots of room for independent thought and improvements, which is what I will be talking about next, actually, with the next project. So one of the main projects that I worked on is our stair installation on the Arrowhead Ridge property. And basically what this was, so you can kind of see in this before picture, unfortunately, I don't have one that doesn't have stairs in it, but you can kind of see it's this eroded area. Basically, the trail runs around it, but people will shortcut it and walk through here. And so even if we slash it, and what slashing is basically, and you'll do this for switchbacks, and you'll see later that I do this all over the property with our entire trail. But here, essentially slashing is placing sticks and logs and objects to block people from cutting the switchback. Unfortunately, we couldn't, because they would constantly remove it. And so we kind of had to think of strategies that we can implement, to prevent this erosion. And so one of the ideas that I came up with was to build stairs, which I think this whole project was really fun because I kind of got to spearhead it and lead it. Obviously, if everyone else wasn't there, we would not be able to do it. But I think it was just fun for me to kind of plan it out, because I had never built stairs before. Neither had anyone else. And I kind of used that hiking and backpacking knowledge and experience, from seeing all these stairs when hiking and backpacking to build this. So ultimately, the design was building 9 stairs made of incense cedar logs and reinforced with rebar. And incense cedar is great because it takes a longer time than other wood in our area to decompose. And we could also source it directly from our property from fallen trees. Yeah, tons of fun. A big challenge was definitely making sure that, we're, because it's a very steep elevation, making sure that our stairs are increasing in height enough to get to the top, and also backfilling it with dirt. So tons of fun. And it was very fun to, not just mindlessly do a task, but actually think about it. And so another thing that we also had to think about was when we rerouted our trail. So this was actually very recent. Basically, you can kind of see before on our map. So you would come up the trail from the right, and you would come up on this orange path. And basically, once you got to the intersection of the orange and the blue path, you had a choice. And there was a sign there that said main trail, which continued on the orange path, or a sign that said viewpoints that continued on the blue path. And the problem with this is most people want to go to the viewpoint anyway. So not only is this less traveled, but if people wanted to continue on the main trail because they didn't know, you can kind of see the viewpoint trail will link back up with the main trail over here on the left. So they would backtrack, and that's kind of a problem. And I thought it was very confusing. And so I kind of brought up this issue to Carla and Kevin. And, I think one thing to highlight is they're very open to feedback. It isn't just me following directions. It's everyone expressing their opinion, which I think is great. And so basically we decided we'll remove this section of the main trail. That way the only choice is to go on the viewpoint trail, which was more popular anyway because people wanted to visit viewpoints. And so you can see over on the right, this is the trail map afterwards. So we just removed that part and it's a lot more clear where you need to go. We updated the signage, so we got rid of that sign that said main trail and viewpoint, which definitely helped a lot with confusion. And then you can see here in these pictures, we did rerouting of the trail. So this is the new trail right here. We put a big sign here, which isn't shown. And this is a picture of Kevin working on it. Yeah. And another fun and exciting thing that we got to do was chopping down lots of trees. I had never used a chainsaw before. On the right, you can see this is a picture of, this is me right here with the chainsaw. This is the first time I ever cut down a tree with a chainsaw. So they taught me how to do that. This is in the middle. This is another picture of Kevin cutting down a tree with a chainsaw. And on the very left, this was very fun. Basically what we did is Kevin attached this line, which you can kind of see, to this tree to the middle. So this was a dead tree that was hanging over after the snowstorm earlier this year. So he threw a line over it, hooked it to the land trust truck, and then drove forward. And this tree actually cut in half and fell. And so we were able to get it out of the way. So that was very fun for sure. And, you know, while I've highlighted a lot of the fun things, not everything is exciting. So a lot of what I did, and most of my time was actually just spent on regular maintenance of the trail. So you can see this on the left. After the most recent storm with the tropical storm, some of the trail got eroded, and so we had to either bring in more dirt, backfill it, or add logs to the side of the trail, things such as. But I also spent a lot of my time not using tools and just walking the trail with Dustin, which spent most of my time on this trail doing. We would walk the whole trail, check switchbacks, and any parts that people had cut on the switchbacks, we would slash. And make note of any erosion, fallen trees. Sometimes we'd have to pick up trash, or a lot of people like leaving their dog poop bags at the trailheads, so cleaning that up. And this one time after the most recent storm, we had to remove a ton of mud from our parking lot, and that took a lot of work. And it's not necessarily exciting, but I think that's okay, because all of this work matters. Another thing that we did was, this is actually last week, we cleaned up a lot of trash along Highway 330. So much junk. It was actually mostly alcohol, energy drink cans, and it was hard work. Being out in the sun, watching out for cars that are driving by. And we actually did the same thing yesterday on our Arrowhead Ridge property as well. We went around most of the property that had streets next to it, and we cleaned that up and trimmed some grass. Another thing that we did was the thinning project on the Pebble Plains property, which I mentioned. Pebble Plains is a unique ecosystem and it's very fragile. We did not do our thinning project directly on the Pebble Plains, just so you know. We did it around the Pebble Plains property. This was also not the most fun thing. We spent a lot of time just cutting branches from trees and breaking them, throwing them, trimming bushes, but it all matters. And so, yeah, so one of the other things that I did that I want to mention, it's the last thing that I want to mention, is the Land Trust Rally 2023. So unfortunately, I don't have many pictures of this, but it was in fact very exciting. The only pictures I have are actually how to build a website, which was from a workshop there about building a website, which is something that it's one of my goals with the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust is to redesign their website. And then another picture that I took was Trust for Public Land had their 50th anniversary, so they were giving free drinks. And just FYI, I'm under 21, so I did not drink alcohol, just so you know. And but I think what was really exciting about this conference is you have land trusts coming from all over the states, as well as even all over the world, some people. And they just share their stories about, you know, what they're doing, how they're protecting unique environments, habitats, protecting endangered species. And a lot of it is volunteer based, or, you know, people that aren't getting paid that much, which I think is extremely inspiring. So one example that I actually want to talk about is a land trust called the Friends of Columbia Gorge Land Trust. And so this rally was in Portland, Oregon, and that land trust is actually nearby. They work on the Oregon-Washington border, and they're a very small team. They work on protecting an endangered species that in Oregon only exists in 5 ponds near the Washington-Oregon border, and that's the northwestern pond turtle. So what they did for that property, because they started 5 years ago, is they got rid of a ton of junk that was on the property. You know, they had to tear down old buildings, cars, whatever else that was on there, you know, old washing machines and stuff. And so they got rid of all that. And they've also gone above and beyond exterminating invasive bullfrogs that are predators of the turtle, quote unquote. They don't eat the adults, but they will eat the young. And so that was a big problem and why that turtle's population was dwindling so much. So they've been exterminating those bullfrogs, which takes a lot of work. They've been going out to the ponds every few days, removing frogs and frog eggs, and they've done that for the past 5 years. Another thing they've done is removed invasive plant species around the ponds and replaced them with native species. And they've also even worked with the Oregon Zoo and another zoo to repopulate the ponds with adult turtles. So I think that was just really exciting to hear how land trusts are not just working in our mountains, but all over. And we need more of them, as well as, you know, even all over the world. There was another presentation from speakers from Chile, France, Northern California, Australia, all talking about their land trusts. The one in Chile actually is the only land trust in Chile, and they have a ton of land that they need to protect, much of which, you know, is being taken over by mining. And those are Mediterranean habitats, which are very important and very rare, which in fact Big Bear is one of those actually. And so, you know, I think it was just fantastic to learn about that. And kind of the gist of my internship, I also want to say, is I learned a ton. You know, even though I've lived up in the mountains since I was, you know, practically self-aware, I never learned all of this stuff. And you know, even though I'm, you know, you would think that it's kind of just a transaction, you know, me working for the land trust, they pay me money, that's about it. But really, I felt like, you know, it was a privilege for me to be working with the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust, because not only do I get to learn trail work, I also get to learn tons and tons of things about saving the environment. So yeah, thank you again to Carla and Kevin Kellums for allowing me to do this, as well as the board of the Land Trust. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat just yet, but does anybody have any questions for Joshua in regards to his internship with the Land Trust? Okay, everybody not speak all at once.
Here, I'll have one. How
Okay.
long does the internship last? And is it, do you think you might do this again or work in environmental organizations at some point in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my internship lasted from, I believe it was July 31st to basically the end of um, next week. So July 31st to September 29th. It's actually going to be a little longer, but I went on a 2-week Arizona trail backpacking trip right before, so a little short. But and then in regards to your second question, I think I would definitely want to work with environmental organizations in the future. I probably wouldn't end up working for a land trust just because of my major.
Mhm.
But I'd love to work in things that are environmentally important, such as battery recycling, or you know even land conservation in general. I met a lot of great people from that land trust rally that work for firms that do engineering in environmental fields. So I would say absolutely. I think the only field I would want to work in is something environmentally related, um, or helping others.
Well,
Okay, thank you, Joshua. We did have somebody, Patty, wanted to thank you for all your hard work. And I definitely want to thank you for all your hard work. It's working for a land trust is not always for everyone. But there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into that. So Joshua, can you just tell me what kind of surprised you about what we did as a land trust? I know you came in not knowing much about what a land trust was, but what was the one thing that kind of surprised you that we did, um, that you thought was really interesting?
Good question. Definitely, well, a lot of things. Definitely the trail work for sure. I had no idea, because our Arrowhead Ridge Trail, the Will Abel Memorial Trail, is, I believe Kevin said, the most popular trail in Lake Arrowhead, and I had never been on it actually. And I think it's just really great that we do that. And it's also really fantastic how many people who've never heard about trails before, that's like one of the first trails that they've hiked on, for a lot of the people coming up from down the mountain. Definitely also the fact that we purchase so much land and, you know, eventually sell it to the Forest Service. I think that was very cool to learn about because it's almost like a self-sustaining way of land constantly being added to Forest Service land. I think that's just a fantastic solution to maybe how slowly government can work sometimes, having um, private landowners like land trusts being able to step in and move very quickly. So I think that was, yeah, really great.
Okay. And Norm asked about, are the land trusts connected? And I don't know if you know the answer to that, but I think what he's alluding to is maybe, are all the land trusts connected together? And the land trusts are not. They're all their own separate entities. But a lot of the land trusts will work together and do partnerships with each other to protect lands that are adjacent to one another. So there's a lot of cohesiveness, and that's probably what Joshua got to experience at the LTA rally, where all
Yes.
the land trusts came together and cohesively worked at talking about all the stuff land trusts do and how they can work together and work better and all that kind of stuff. So that is a great question, Norm. They are all separate entities, but they do work together. And there was another question from Chris, or not really a question, but more of a comment. She says, that's great, Joshua. Continue working on your quest to help save the earth and combat climate change. Continue success at UCLA. She said both her sons went to UCLA engineering school. So there's probably quite a
Oh,
few
wow.
UCLA alumni out there. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you
definitely.
definitely, just out of curiosity, why did you pick UCLA?
Uh, oh man, this is actually an interesting question. So I originally was going to go to UC Riverside. I transferred in from a community college, San Bernardino Valley College, and basically all my friends there were going to go to UCR, and so I didn't really have any interest in applying to many schools. I actually only applied to UC Riverside and UCLA kind of as a joke, also because it didn't cost any extra money for me to apply to UCLA, so I was like, why not? And ended up getting into UCLA, which I think my parents were very shocked and they just did not expect it. And they were encouraging me very much to go there instead of UCR. You know, when I got accepted to UCLA, I was like, well, I'll still go to UCR with my friends, but they convinced me otherwise and ended up going to UCLA. Um, yeah, no, I was pretty young when I transferred. There were no real like, conscious decisions regarding which school I was going to go to. I was just kind of like, well, I'll go wherever. So,
Yeah, sometimes it happens that way. A school just kind of falls in your lap.
yep.
Good explanation. Are there any other questions for Joshua before we wrap things up? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody, but I did see, okay, Chris Torres chimes back in. She says, after her sons with the UCLA, one of them got a master's in environmental engineering at UCR. So you could do that. So
Nice.
definitely a
Yeah.
good suggestion there.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris, for your suggestion.
Yep. Yeah.
Always want to guide the youth into areas where they will help protect and preserve the environment. So I guess I want to thank everybody for coming to Trail Talk tonight. I know there was a little change in the schedule, but I think it was all for the best because I think for us older folks, it's really nice to hear about what the youth is doing these days in helping with environmental concerns. So thank you guys all for attending our Trail Talk tonight.
Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So we just want to do a really big thank you again to Joshua for sharing all the great information, and thanks to everyone for kind of putting up with our technical challenges. We'll see you again next month with our Trail Talk, third Wednesday of the month, touring Yellowstone and Grand Teton. And remember that this recording will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow by the afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Bobbi Jo Chavarria. Thanks to Carla and Marianne and all the folks who kicked in to help tonight be as successful as we could make it. Have a great day. And remember, more adventures.